Hey, what's up guys? UrAvgWarGamer is back with another video of Warships. And today, I'm going to be taking a look at the top 5 best coal ships that you can buy right now in the tier 10. That's right, I will be explaining them, and especially compared to 2024, they recently have gotten them the buffs. The Wargaming has buffed some of these coal ships, which kind of makes me recommend the newest coal ships. Well, they are relatively old, but I haven't recommended them before, but now I will. Certainly, this is also one of that destroyer that is in front of your screen that I now started to recommend just because of these buffs that Wargaming has done. So much so that it started to look interesting. It was already interesting in some way, but now it is a lot comfortable to play and a lot comes up with higher value when you are using its gimmicks. So let's talk about these ships in general, and if you do like the content and if you do like my explanation, if you find it very useful, you can always let me know in the comments what do you think about these ships and if you have them or not. And let's start about the number 5th pick, which is going to be the Tromp, which is the Dutch destroyer that has the very special ability, and I would say the uniqueness of this ship is going to be the airstrikes. Now Dutch cruisers like Goudenleeuw, the Utrecht have airstrikes. And the Tromp is only one of that premium, or I would say freemium destroyer that has access to airstrike. 2 of them, very easy to land. That's one of the things that I kind of like it a lot. That Tromp has relatively easier. The time required to drop these bombs, the lead required to drop these bombs are relatively easier compared to Goudenleeuw, for example. And they have recently buffed the Tromp range. The Tromp range was always like 10 kilometer and it feels like a bit, oh, I'm just running away, kiting out. Feels a bit like sometimes low. The range feels a bit lower. You can be in a complex situation where you have to run away from the target out of 10 kilometer where you cannot use the airstrikes. But now, since Wargaming has buffed it to 12 kilometer, the airstrikes are now so much comfortable that it kind of makes it very powerful at the same time. It was already decent overall, but now with the buffs on airstrikes, and also they have buffed the torpedoes, I think they have buffed the damage and the reload time of torpedoes and the speed. They have done quite a lot of tinkering with torps, which makes them really good against battleships. And funny enough, you can use this combination of airstrikes, which are kind of very toxic. I mean, not shooting the guns while keeping the battleship spotted, while staying in stealth, and while sending the torpedoes along with airstrikes is not balanced. I'm not gonna lie. This can go pretty bad for a poor battleship who is pushing Tromp. And this is something that Tromp gets a lot of fun from. Like, the battleship is pushing, you started to send these airstrikes, you have 2 attack flights, and eventually you can get 3rd one if you get Conrad Helfrich, which is kind of insane. Like, the Conrad Helfrich increases the Tromp capabilities to the upside, which is crazy. Like, it gets so good buffs, especially in the case of Tromp, that I can only imagine that Conrad Helfrich and Tromp is a lethal combo, regardless. But torpedoes are pretty good. You only have 6 of them, and you can only send 3 from one side. You cannot like send 6 on one side. It's not possible. As you can see, the arrangement is literally such that you can only send 3 per side, but still, your firing angles are impressive. You, by the way, have really good guns, 150mm caliber guns, decent HE alpha, decent fire chance. In fact, very, very impressive fire chance. You have 12% fire chance with the help of flags. And funny enough, Conrad Helfrich or the other captain gives you improved demolition expert, which increases the fire chance from 1 to 1.5%. Now that is a big jump. In a 2-pointer demolition expert, 1% sometimes feels not that impressive. But man, if you increase the value 50%, which you can clearly see, it's 1.5% now with this improved demolition expert, it certainly start to get a lot powerful. Now this 2-pointer is really gonna be amazing. Like, you have 13.5% chance, and that kind of like ridiculous, because if you take a look at the cruiser, for example, the Des Moines, or maybe the Salem, because it's basically the Des Moines with a different, armament, you can see here that the base fire chance of Salem is 14%. And Tromp is touching that in a destroyer, which is kind of nuts. You also have improved HE pen, 30mm, which you can pen basically on 30mm cruiser plating at tier 10, which again is a huge value. Your improved main battery firing range is like the base range is 13.3 kilometers, so you don't need to really spec for the main battery firing range. Like this is very comfortable. If I'm not wrong, like for me, extremely comfortable. You can just farm battleships. The shell velocity is decent enough. These are kind of Ragnar guns, to be honest. So you are going to get a lot of value from these guns, and I especially build them for the literally for gun performance. I mean, if you just simply build it like this, you started to get like huge reload boost, okay, buff, like the fearless brawler that you can do open water, the main battery and A especially, and the improved fire chance. It just makes it so good. And then you're getting extra airstrike, and if you get the witherer, which is very much possible if you farm battleship with constant flooding and fires with the airstrikes and somewhat shells that you are throwing at 12-13 kilometers, you know that Tromp is going to be a very good package, very nasty package against battleships and even cruisers if they somehow manage to eat torpedoes and you are landing some airstrikes. And also, the concealment is good enough that it can get to 5.8 kilometer, which is very, very good. I'm not gonna lie, this is actually getting closer to the torpedo boat destroyers. The gunboat destroyers usually starts from 6 kilometer and up, but the extra 0.2 kilometer stealthiness of the Tromp makes sure that it is really making a difference. And also you do have the emergency engine power, 25% speed boost, because its base speed is not that impressive at all. And this does help a lot in many engagements where you feel that you're going to be taking a lot of damage. That speed juking capability can be really nice on Tromp. You can use these emergency engine power. Also, you do have defensive fire, which sometimes work. I mean, tier 10 aircraft carriers will definitely gonna strike you regardless. You don't have flags, but you do have medium range 8 damage, some damage into that aura, 3.5 kilometer aura, which sometimes can help with the defensive fire, but don't expect to shoot down planes unless the CV is just hovering around constantly within your 3.5 kilometer range. That's where you might have some planes shot down, although it's just too bad overall, the AA, that I would not recommend you for just AA platform, but still somewhat manageable. At least against tier 8s, it started to get a bit better, but yeah. But that's basically Tromp. Decent HP. If I use survivability expert, you can get it to like 28,000, which is pretty nice. You don't have heals, but this package, I must say, is amazing. And I think at number 5, this is specially recommended to you guys who has played Goudelnu and the Utrecht. So play this destroyer, it's worth it at number 5. Very much good for cold ship. Alright, so at number 4, I would say old is gold. And Moskva is a very old ship in World of Warships. In fact, it used to be a Tech 3 cruiser that we used to get and grind for free. But now Wargaming has replaced it with, I would say, Petropavlovsk and maybe the Nevsky, whatever you call it. But they have removed this Tech 3 Tier 10 cruiser into the coal premium section. So you can get coal, or I would say you can get Moskva for coal resource. And I would say, even though it's very old Russian cruiser, it is still very impressive. Now, you can kind of say that it's very much having resemblance to that of Petro. And I still would say not like Petro. It is a bit different. It's more of a HE spammer compared to the Petro's AP gun performance that is just way better than Moskva, obviously. 220mm guns, 9 of them, and you have 10.4 seconds of reload time. I mean, you can improve the reload time if you use the reload mod, but because I am using the legendary mod, which is highly recommended on Moskva, like, it's not as good as Petro, because Petro gets slightly better this version compared to the 7% that you find on Moskva, but at least Moskva will not going to lose out on consumables. And since your HP is more than Petro, your heals will be a lot much more giving you HP. And you do have very long duration. I think it's probably the longest 12-kilometer submarine surveillance radar on a cruiser. So that is like a huge difference. Like 40 seconds of radar on a Moskva that has like 12-kilometer range. Now that is very, very powerful against destroyers. I must say, it can definitely lock down DDs behind the islands for a long time, and if they are in a bad position, I mean, they're gonna get screwed. Your HE spamming capabilities are very good. You can get at least 4 shots onto a DD, which can certainly deal like 10 to 12,000 damage or even more if they are bad in maneuvering. So that is pretty good. You do have Hydro or Defensive AFI, although I would never recommend Defensive AFI. The Moskva AA and the armor, which is a very, very tanky point for Moskva, but still a weakness at the same time. And the entire defense is mediocre, I must say. It does have good range, like 6.6 kilometer, which you don't find on any other nations. Like the Russians, the British ones do have improved firing range, more than 6 kilometer, but still, overall, the damage output of the AA is not good enough, so it's not recommended to use defensive AFI. But if you want to do it, you can try. It's never too bad. It's going to be okay against average players or below. But, however, the HE performance, 17% fire chance, the shell velocity, you have very easy chance landing the shells. You have improved range than Petro. Like, for example, if you use the legendary mode, obviously. Otherwise, it's still going to be having very decent range. I think it's around 19 kilometers or something. Maybe I can check that out. But it does have decent range overall. You have improved range because of the leg mod, which is, again, another advantage that you are using it for. But I would say the total HP, which almost gets up to 70,000, and this tankiness, like armor, like beautiful armor layout, if you are bowing in for a cruiser, very good for, I would say, a beginner friendliness. Like, it's going to be very good for new players if you are bowing in. If you are broadsiding in Moskva as a newer player, you're going to be having devastating strikes for the opposing side. I mean, you're just going to make enemy ships farm devastating strike. Its armor is basically that bad on broadside. Like, it's bad than Petro. It's even bad, slightly bad than Stalingrad, which is a steel cruiser. So, I mean, player will have a lot easier time if they are bowing in onto that cruiser and HE spam that, and that's what it is going to be very, very good at compared to Des Moines and Salem. Like, those cruisers will just simply going to get overmatched. Moskva will be highly resistant in taking a lot of damage, like those ships from 457mm caliber or above, but still, broadsiding is going to be making your life hard. But that is with a lot of other cruisers. But Moskva is definitely it gets into the worst way possible in terms of taking damage. So be sure not to broadside, and you are going to have good time in Moskva. With this amazing radar, I must say, DDs will never gonna be hovering around here and there with this long duration radar, and Kuznetsov is an amazing captain. I mean, getting that extra DCP and the small heal at the end when you have like less than 10% HP makes a huge difference, and Moskva will definitely going to get a lot of value from this. Speed is good, concealment is bad. Do not try to go for the concealment. Like, this ship is not for that. Like, if you are thinking of stealthiness, I think Brisbane for coal cruiser is better. But man, it's very much difficult to play if you get spotted. Like, you're gonna get wrecked. But Moskva is very, again, I would say, beginner friendly if you know how to position and bowing in. Which again, sometimes the aspects of these points are also a bit complicated for newer players, positioning especially. But still, Moskva would be a lot better compared to many other cruisers. And that's why I would recommend it at number 4. The AP shell velocity is good. AP penetration is not exactly like the Petropavlovsk, which having improved penetration angles like Stalingrad, like even the Sevastopol, even the Commissar. It is kind of like I would say, first generation AP performance on Russian cruiser like Moskva. It's basically like first generation, like you find in cars. Cars have first generation engine, and then you have second generation engine with improvement, and so on and so forth. Moskva is basically having first generation AP, which is a bit lacking, and you are mostly going to stick to HE, even though the AP can hurt around 15 to under kilometers, like 10 kilometers. It start to hurt a lot, and can citadel sometimes if battleships broadsiding in medium to close ranges sometimes. So that's why Moskva is still very relevant with really good reload time at number 4. And by the way, it has cruiser dispersion, just remember, which kind of makes it very good and accurate cruiser, along with the leg mod, which is like kind of crazy, making it even better in accuracy at number 4. Well, just like Moskva is different enough compared to Petropavlovsk at tier 10 that I recommend you that coal ship, Marceau is also a bit different compared to Kleber for a coal ship. In fact, it's a lot much more fun and very powerful in couple of reasons that I would explain compared to Kleber. Like Marceau strength and the reason why I would recommend is going to be the gun performance. The gun performance of Marceau is kind of like slower shells, like compared to Kleber, slower shell arcs, but it's kind of like having constant, I would say, main battery reload booster active. Like the Kleber has slow reload time, fast shell velocity, but once you use main battery reload booster, it starts to pump a lot of shells in a short time. Marceau is different. It has better DPM because its base reload time on 8 guns is 2.9 seconds, which is pretty impressive. And that's why it gets the HE DPM more than 300k, which again is something that kind of makes it one of the best destroyers in damage output. But unfortunately, as of right now, we have Alberico da Barbiano, which kind of takes that crown from Marceau, from many other ships like Forrest Sherman, basically having the best DPM, but SAP DPM in the game. At least in terms of HE DPM, Marceau is going to be still superior in probably going to be around the top 3 destroyers, which kind of makes it very impressive. The reload time of the gun's pretty good. The shell velocity can be sometimes wonky. Against battleships at long ranges, you can easily farm them. Cruisers, a bit difficult at long ranges, and destroyers, almost impossible. Compared to Kleber, that has fast shell velocity, I think this is one of the things that makes it a lot different. Also, in terms of survivability, basically same as Kleber. There is zero difference, if I am not wrong, compared to Kleber. Even the HP is same. And the torpedoes are different compared to Kleber, and that's where it started to get a lot much more comfortable, I would say, but in a very different way. Like Kleber has hard-hitting torpedoes, 8-kilometer range, difficult to use because it's having bad concealment. I will get to the Marceau concealment in the later part, but let's talk about the torpedoes. Reload time is bad compared to Kleber. Like Kleber has like almost half of the time to reload on these torpedoes. Like those are very fast reloading torpedoes, which gives him really high DPM. But at least what Marceau has, it's better range and somewhat better time using them. That's where the Marceau will definitely going to feel better. And you do have 12 of them, 6 on each side, which again makes it very good if there is a battleship pushing. And you can get floods if possible, and then you can shoot the guns to get permanent fires. And that's why Marceau is unique and different compared to Kleber, and that's why I like it. One of the biggest reasons that Marceau might be more interesting compared to Kleber is the anti-air defense. Anti-air defense is definitely an improvement, quite a lot of improvement compared to Kleber. Now, Kleber does not have really good, impressive, I would say, anti-air. If I just go and compare the Kleber with the Marceau in terms of anti-air defense, there is a big difference, which I will explain. As you can see, this is the Kleber, the Tag 3 counterpart like Marceau. And if I look at the anti-air defense, the numbers are absolutely weak. Only 3.8 kilometer range. The continuous damage is pretty bad, 231. It's not gonna win any wars against carriers. I mean, it's not gonna be able to shoot down even planes at all. So Kleber suffers a lot from carriers. Whereas Marceau started to get a bit different. Not only that it has improved range, like 6 kilometer, even though the medium AA range guns are exactly not like Kleber. Kleber does have better anti-air, medium range or AA aura damage, but you have access to defensive AA fire. The speed boost is basically the same, 20%. If I'm not wrong on Kleber, I think Kleber also have like basically ditto copy. Yeah. Only thing that is main battery reload booster, but Marceau, just like I said, very, very good HE DPM performance, slower shells, but really like insane DPM performance, like infinite sort of main battery reload booster for Marceau compared to Kleber. But yeah, that's where the difference comes quite a lot. The Marceau does have really good anti-air defense compared to Kleber, but not compared to, I would say, Holland. So don't take it as of like you're just going to be immune to carriers. It's impossible. Like, the Marceau only going to get one advantage, at least compared to Holland, and that is speed and the saturation mechanics, which again makes it pretty nice to get it for coal. DPM at close ranges, you will just chew destroyers extremely hard. Like the destroyers will have a really hard time killing you. Meanwhile, you can just trade them off like as if you are just sending off the fly from your shoulder. It's just that easy to kill those DDs that are having poor DPM or maybe mediocre HE DPM. Marceau will just kill them. And with the saturation mechanics, you will be taking half of the damage once you are getting low in HP, which is again a huge advantage, just like Kleber, but in a different way. Speed, again, as usual, very good. The concealment, however, now started to get a lot much more interesting. Whereas Kleber can have a concealment of 7.8 max, the Marceau has 7 kilometer detection. If I just use the Kleber captain, you will see that you can have a concealment up to 7 kilometer. So there's a huge difference. Kleber, 7.8, Marceau, 7 kilometer. Again, making it a lot much more powerful in just catching that destroyer off guard with your insane speed, which is 55 knots. And that is why Marceau is a very, very good complete package and interesting compared to Kleber, which makes it worth it for gold. And especially if you get the Marceau, for gold and also apply the Charles Henry Honor, I think it's one of the captain that you can get either from Armory for doubloons and either you can get from, I would say, the container section. You can go and check out the container section. You complete that collection to get Charles Henry Honor, or that's, the other French captain, which does have improved AR, which again, huge advantage for Marceau. And also, if you just fully build it for gun boat, like main battery and A specialist and fearless brawler and range, which it does have low compared to Kleber. Kleber has like base 13.8 kilometer firing range. Marceau has 13.8, so that's a bit of a difference, and that's where you need main battery and A expert. So with this build, you can have pretty absurd DPM. Like it can go up to like 350,000 HE DPM or even more once you are taking a bit of damage, and that improved AR kicks in. It just makes it extremely powerful. I mean, it's worth it, and I would say it's one of the very strongest destroyers if you are an experienced player. Experience in the experienced hands, Marceau is extremely powerful. I mean, you can go and check out the videos of Marceau. If there's a very good Marceau captain, he will carry the game, and he will certainly kill the destroyers once he have the advantage of the concealment over them, or if they are very close. Definitely worth it for Cole. I think it's unique enough compared to Kleber that highly recommended, man. It's fun, enjoyable experience compared to Tromp. Insane firepower, like Tromp has airstrikes, but it has DPM that is just gonna crush the opponent for sure at number 3. Okay, so at number 2, I think the Napoli is just a straight up better choice, I would say, for a Italian cruiser compared to Moskva. Moskva does have some downside, like weak broadside, which Napoli does have, but not that much exposed like the Moskva. It does have some trollish aspects in terms of armor, which I might explain. But the reason why Napoli is worth it at number 2 is the combination of good gun performance, but having very special capability that you find on this Italian cruiser, which is the combination of the exhaust smoke generator and the SAP secondaries. That's right, it's one of the cruisers that can have a range of 11 kilometer, which you can clearly see, and does have the exhaust smoke generator, which means if you are engaging with battleship 1 versus 1, all you do on Napoli is to smoke up. You pop this fighter plane. The fighter plane is good against carriers. It can shoot down the planes, or if you want to spot the battleships that are within the vicinity of 10 or 9 kilometers, or if you are pushing in, you can use these SAP secondaries to your advantage, and you can just keep farming the SAP secondaries with this exhaust smoke generator. You will be staying unspotted unless you get radared, which is again something that cruisers can do, the enemy cruisers or even some radar destroyers can do, but in most scenarios you will be safe. The spotter plane, the fighter plane will help you spot the battleship, and you can just farm with SAP. And the SAP has really good DPM, the shells are good and fast, the range is amazing, 11 kilometer if you spec it with this captain build, and so you will have a lot of fun. So that's the reason why Napoli is good. Like, this is one of the reasons that I would recommend Napoli. It is good mid to close range brawler in 1 versus 1 situation. Now, the Napoli also comes up with guns, which I explained here a bit. Before that, the Napoli has 254mm caliber guns, good AP, but instead of SAP like Venezia, which again now started to make a difference. Like Napoli is definitely going to be a lot different compared to Venezia. Venezia use SAP, Napoli use HE shells and AP shells. So Napoli does have better penetration with AP and also set good fires if you want to use these HE shells. However, the dispersion pattern of the Napoli is like that of Petropavlovsk. Petropavlovsk has worse dispersion at long ranges, and you will also going to find the Napoli having worse dispersion at long ranges. So again, incentivized by wargaming that you play it at medium to close ranges, and that's where it's going to be doing a great job. And the AP will hit hard onto those light cruisers, overmatch 16mm. Yes, you can do that with 254mm caliber guns. HE pool is impressive. The smoke gives it a lot of that tankiness that you want on a cruiser, like good HP, good torpedo protection. I'm not going to say good torpedo protection, but it's better than many other cruisers out there, like light cruisers and even heavy cruisers, so that makes a bit more sense. But here comes the very interesting part of the Napoli, which kind of shines it in many situations, and also kind of makes it very, very, very tanky cruiser in tier 10. Like, it's one of the very tankiest cruiser, and that is its armor. Side armor, 60mm. Resistant to a lot of HE, like 50mm HE pen from 305mm caliber guns is not possible. So you will shatter even cruiser HE shells like Yoshino, the Stalingrad, like those cruisers, man, which is very good. And then 40mm deck and 60mm deck armor, the side armor, make sure that no battleship can overmatch you. Literally, Satsuma, incomparable, Hanover, Chikishima, no one can do that. And that's where it is getting a lot tankier. Your superstructure is relatively small, although it is widened, but small and can tank a lot of HE shells, which is pretty good. You have cruiser fire duration. So, I mean, it's a package that you will like from the Italians. I must say, it's better than Moskva in some ways that kind of makes it like a more of a fun factor. Like the fun factor on Napoli, pushing into the battleship and farming them with SAP, and then even torping them if you get close, is just so much good. Torpedoes are stealthy, reaction time is 7.3, so I mean you can even send them at long ranges, kiting away, and can sometimes land these torpedoes. Firing angles of torps are extremely good. And then here comes another thing that is pretty good. The speed, however, is, I would say, okay. It's better than average, but could be more, I would say. I would still say it's impressive, 37.3 knots. Like a lot of the cruisers does not have sometimes this. But I mean, except for the French that has speed boost. But even then, I would say is better than average. I liked it. But here comes the very interesting part that kind of makes it very good. And that is its concealment. Not only that it's very tanky, its concealment is something like that of light cruisers. Like literally light cruisers have 10 kilometer concealment. But you are having it on Napoli. For example, if I take a look at Worcester has 9.8 kilometer. Jinan has, I think, 9.8 kilometer if I'm not wrong. Like usually those cruisers have 10 kilometer-ish around concealment. And Napoli kind of has this level of concealment on this platform like armor. Bro. And then you do have you do have like exhaust smoke generator. It's extremely powerful. You can just get out of jail free card by using these smokes if you want to. Tankiness point of view is something that makes it extremely powerful. The gun reload time might not be very good, like 17 seconds. I think the gun performance overall is something that they have balanced Napoli. Napoli is kind of not balanced. They have balanced it with the gun reload time that is too long, the dispersion that is not too good at long ranges. You have to play it in medium to close range, so high risk, and sort of higher reward, I would say. And if you are into that sort of thing, well, Napoli is going to be for you. In fact, Napoli at least going to be a lot much more beginner friendly compared to Moskva. Moskva is certainly good in spotting destroyers where Napoli does not. But certainly it can be a game changer once you be able to farm battleships and cruisers out there, and if you caught them off guard while using smoke, it just makes a lot more sense. A small nitpicking that I would say that it has over the Venezia, and that is its detection after firing main guns in smoke. 8.8 kilometer. for 254 millimeter guns. Now that is pretty impressive. To put that into perspective, let me show you the Salem. If I'm not wrong, the Salem or Des Moines class cruiser. Look at the detection in smoke. 203 millimeter caliber guns, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, 203 millimeter caliber guns, and your detection in smoke is 8.2. Now you have very high caliber in Napoli, and you're still going to have that good, concealment in smoke while shooting the guns is absolutely good. Like, so you can just farm ships while staying in smoke as well, and you can use that 11 to 8.8 kilometer area, something like that. So you can use the secondaries while not getting spotted in smoke, and you can shoot the guns while using SAP secondaries. Like the combination, the amount of combinations that you can use on Napoli, the amount of abilities, it's a great package. That's what I can say. The armor is great. The armor is a bit trollish, man. I mean, compared to the many other cruisers, like look at this. It does have this weird sort of slope, which means that at close ranges, sometimes it's going to be a bit difficult to citadel, but at long ranges, you certainly are going to get citadel. 30 millimeter slope, going to get overmatched by 457 millimeter guns, which guarantee a citadel at long ranges. So these are the things that Napoli does suffer, but again, armor is just better than Moskva. Like the Moskva is straight up having that big citadel, whereas Napoli, not exactly that. So at number 2, I must say Napoli is very strong cruiser. I hope I just explained it absolutely everything that I possibly can, and that's why it is really good at number 2. All right, so finally at number 1, I would say I would highly recommend the Forrest Sherman. This destroyer is nothing short of a beast. It's a beast of a destroyer, very versatile, better concealed compared to, I would say, Marceau or any of the destroyer like Kleber, and still has a DPM which is crazy. You have SAP shells, you have 3 turrets, you have 387,000 SAP DPM. Now that is, again, better than Marceau, right? And you do have a smoke, which Marceau does not have. Unlike Kleber, unlike Marceau, unlike, I would say, Tromp, this is the superiority that Sherman does have. Like the smoke is American one, dispersion time is long, the action time is good, so you smoke and farm the hell out of any battleship and cruiser. And you do have access to HE. If you think that the battleship is angled and the SAP might not work, well, simply shoot HE, and that HE is also having very good fire chance, 9%, and your shell velocity, at least compared to Marceau, and even Tromp, if I am not wrong, is better. I think I might need to check the shell velocity of Tromp, but I remember that the Sherman does have very, very good shell velocity, and if you build it for range, which can be going up to like 14.8 or 15 kilometer, I might need to check out the number exactly, but if you build it for range, which I would highly recommend, if you do this, or you can also not need to do this because you do have smoke to farm, you can have very easy shell velocity. Like the shells are extremely comfortable. The SAP DPM is just gonna melt down DDs. Like this SAP will just simply going to kill that DD super quickly. There is no way that he can do anything about it if he does not disengage. Moreover, the Sherman is also having access to hydro. Now 5 kilometer hydro, smoke means you are going to be very good in contesting caps. And if there's a destroyer like the Germans, like that have the 6 kilometer detection with the hydro, you can still contest them, right? And you can still somewhat push them in their smokes and kill them because of your absurd SAP DPM. So these guns, the HE DPM, the SAP DPM, these numbers are absolutely cracked. The HE DPM might be balanced. At least there are some good destroyers out there, but still it is very impressive. It's like one of those very, very top 5, top 10, I would say at least top 5 destroyers out there that has like very good HE DPM, but the SAP DPM is like, I would say, the highest. At least, the Barbiano, now that the steel ship has arrived, which is I would say, cruiser disguised as a destroyer. I mean, that has absurd DPM, but otherwise, the SAP DPM king, it was always going to be the Sherman. Now it got, unchecked because of the Barbiano, but still, torpedoes, great. I mean, you send 2 on each side. Your fighting angles are terrible. Like, you can kind of send like like in this way. Like the sending of torpedoes are like very, very tight angles, but very long range. And somehow I managed to get like 1 or 2 torpedo every game. Believe it or not, very good reload time. You send 4 torpedoes if you want to, throw them on one side. You can do that by just turning in and out. And the torpedo damage is there. If you get flood, you can set fires, and you can just do quite a lot of shenanigans. And you do have the smoke, right? So if someone will be spotting for you, I mean, you're just gonna farm battleship, cruiser, and destroyer. So you do have like a really good chance and time against those ships. And even if you just don't build it for concealment, your concealment can go as bad as 7.2. Whereas Marceau will have 7 kilometer if he fully builds it for concealment. Like this is really good advantage for a very good gunboat performance. The Sherman still has very good, very decent, I would say, the concealment. And I mean, if you use hull save, which I would highly recommend, then you will have 20% more SAP DPM. Kind of makes it completely bonkers once you use, or I would say once you get Confederate. Insane. I would say highly, highly recommend. And moreover, compared to Hayate, compared to, I would say, the Tromp, compared to Marceau, it has better anti-defense. Why? Look at the continuous damage. Continuous damage is kind of very much similar to Marceau, slightly less, I would say. But here comes the difference that makes it very much stronger, and that is its defensive airfire. Your defensive airfire has 100% continuous damage, which is only associated with American ships, American destroyers, at least on American destroyers, I would say, which is a huge advantage. At least against carriers, I think you are the best cold cruiser. Maybe the Groningen comes into my mind at tier 9, which kind of outperforms compared to Sherman. But I think it's the second best or the third best out of all the DDs. At tier 10, at least at tier 10, it's really good. In the cold destroyers department, Sherman is the best. That's for sure. So you can just reliably somewhat do well against tier 8 carriers. But tier 10 carriers, well, they can just farm you, definitely. But still, at least you will be shooting down planes. Unlike in the Hayate, which will not going to do anything. So that's the thing which I must say makes Sherman extremely powerful, somewhat more versatile than Marceau, but Marceau is still good in its French way. The Sherman is like more towards the freedom, sap shells that it can throw makes it a huge difference. So I will probably end the video. I think this destroyer is highly recommended. I would say beginner friendly. So it just makes sense to buy it first compared to Marceau. And you can always let me know down in the comment section what do you think about these ships, 5 ships. Till then, I will catch you guys later, and peace out.